So the Dallas Cowboys are a team with a lot on the line this season, as they could lose two of their most important or most influential pieces if they do not perform well. So I've got to talk about that, some extensions getting done today, Jamar Chase's confusing hold-in continuing, and much more right after. First up, we have some exciting news for Dolphins fans because Miami's head coach Mike McDaniel just signed a new contract that extends him through the 2028 season. McDaniel initially signed a 4-year contract back in 2022, and this new deal is a 3-year extension of that. That puts him on the same timeline as Tua Tagovailoa, who also signed an extension this offseason that expires in 2028. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle also got new contracts. Tyreek was like a pay raise, but still, it appears either way the Dolphins are going full steam ahead with this core for the next few years at least. McDaniel has 2 seasons as the Dolphins head coach under his belt, and if you remember back in 2022, his first year there, Tua missed multiple games with that weird concussion situation. He had multiple, 2 or 3 off the top of my head, but Miami still went 9-8 and made the wild card round where they would lose to the Bills by 3 in Buffalo, but the Dolphins were starting Skylar Thompson at quarterback. Then last year, they went 11-6 with the second highest scoring offense in the league before getting frozen at Arrowhead and losing to the Chiefs in the wild card round. So, while McDaniel is yet to win a playoff game for Miami, the last time they made back-to-back playoff appearances was the 2000 and 2001 season. So, a well-deserved deal for the strangest / funniest / freshest kick-wearing coach in all the land. And then someone else got paid today. It was not a coach, but a player, a kicker to be exact, to be pinpoint accurate. Dicker the kicker with the Chargers. Adam Schefter reported that LAC and Cameron Dicker reached an agreement on a 4-year, $22.004, very specific, $1 million extension that includes $12.5 million guaranteed. And this makes Dicker one of the top 5 highest paid kickers in the NFL, actually tied with Graham Gano and Evan McPherson at $5.5 million APY. Next up, while those 2 contract extensions appeared to go smoothly, one that's not going as smoothly right now is taking place in Dallas. Yeah, there appears to be a little friction, to say the least, among Jerry Jones and Dak Prescott. I covered this in a video on Monday, but Jerry Jones made the news for some insane, profane, no-brained comments he made about why he's the best GM for the Cowboys and nobody, including his own children, could do better. What a humble man. He then basically said he's going to keep running this team until he dies. So yeah, have fun with that, Cowboys fans. Then earlier this week, some more comments floated around the interweb after Geriatric Jones was asked what he needs to see from Dak in order to give him a new contract, and have a listen.
You could easily say, if you hadn't seen it by now, you haven't seen it. When you look at a situation, you've also got to weigh, okay, what are the consequences of the other side of the coin? And so Dak's situation right now, for me, from my mirror, has more to do with our situation than it does with the merits of Dak Prescott being quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys.
That initial comment is insane, but he did go on to say he's proud to have Dak as the quarterback this year. He's got a great work ethic, etc. But that first part almost sounded like a wee little jab at him for the lack of success he and the Cowboys have had in the postseason during Dak's tenure. After all, Dak is 2-5 in the playoffs since he took over in 2016, only making it as far as the divisional round. The Cowboys are also coming off of 3 consecutive 12-win seasons, so expectations have been high, as they always are in Dallas, yet the payoff just hasn't been there. Anyway, when Dak was asked about what Jerry Jones said about this, here is what he had to say. Quote, "I stopped honestly listening to things Jerry Jones says to the media a long time ago. It doesn't really hold weight with me." Well, not only is that answer pretty wild, but I think it shows some obvious dissension going on there behind the scenes between Dak Prescott and his representation in the Cowboys. Not a big surprise, but I do think this year is quite the do-or-die year for the Dallas Cowboys for a couple of reasons. Dak obviously being one of them. He's entering the final year of the 4-year, $160 million contract he signed back in 2021. And as to whether a new deal will happen before the start of the season, Dak said, quote, "I think it says a lot if it is or it isn't done." And when asked on a follow-up what he meant by that, he basically said it'll reveal how people feel. And while Dak went on to say he's not concerned about the contract stuff at this point in time, he just wants to help this team win, he's got to be a little concerned. I mean, Dallas would be a pretty ideal place to play for the next 3 or 4 years after all, but hey, there's plenty of teams that do not have a long-term answer at the quarterback spot right now that would definitely be interested in Dak's services next offseason. the Raiders, maybe the Giants or Jets, depending on how those contract situations play out with Daniel Jones or Aaron Rodgers, and also the Steelers, just to name a few. So if Dak doesn't get a deal done, he will have plenty of interest for sure. Then part two of this being a bit of a do or die year for the Cowboys is that head coach Mike McCarthy is also on a contract year. He's been with the Cowboys since 2020, going 1-3 in the postseason as their head coach, and with a roster that stacked, that's pretty insane and borderline unacceptable. That's why Dallas could see quite the change next year if both Dak and McCarthy are gone. If the Cowboys ball out, though, and make maybe the NFC Championship or even the Super Bowl, I don't know if that's going to happen, guys, but just saying, maybe things would look different in 2025. But if they are once again one and done or don't make it past the divisional round, there could be some trouble brewing for both McCarthy and Dak Prescott. But with that being said, let me know what you think about this being a pretty big do or die year for the Cowboys. Moving on, though, from the Cowboys and money to talk about the Cowboys and money, Forbes just released their annual list of the most valuable NFL franchises. And for the 18th straight year, the Cowboys have topped this list, and it's not really even close. Their projected value is $10.1 billion this year, making them the first professional sports team to reach that mark. And here's a look at the other 9 teams in the top 10. You have the Rams, Patriots, Giants, Jets, 49ers, Raiders, Eagles, then Bears, and the Commanders right at number 10. And if you're curious who the least valuable franchise is, well, it's the Cincinnati Bengals at $4.1 billion, which as a Chiefs fan sounds about right. Jokes aside, it's important to note that on-the-field success doesn't have much to do with the valuations of teams. For example, the Chiefs are the 24th most valuable team at $4.85 billion, despite winning 3 Super Bowls in the last 5 years. Meanwhile, only 4 of the top 10 highest valued franchises made the playoffs last year. So they're kind of like poverty franchises, but not really at all. Something else I found interesting, though, is that every NFL team is profitable, which is not the case in both the NBA and the MLB. We all know this, but the NFL is king here in America, and this is just further proof of that. Next up, let's talk about the very strange situation going on over in Cincinnati involving Ja'Marr Chase. Basically, Chase still has 2 years left on his rookie deal, the last year of his 4-year deal, and then the team's 5th-year option that they picked up on him. But he is seeking a new contract this offseason. He's been showing up to the facility during training camp and participating in meetings, but hasn't practiced and has been holding in, as opposed to a traditional holdout where the player doesn't show up at all. Well, on Sunday, he did suit up for practice, and it appeared the hold-in was over, with Bengals coach Zach Taylor saying the plan is for Ja'Marr to continue practicing and that he expects to play week 1. Well, the very next day after Taylor's comments to the media, Ja'Marr waltzed into practice 13 minutes after it started wearing street clothes and did not participate in practice. Afterwards, Zach Taylor then said, "I think I probably put my foot in my mouth," speaking too quickly. This is a day-to-day situation. We'll just keep seeing it as that. Then yesterday, Adam Schefter appeared on the Pat McAfee show to talk about the whole ordeal, with Schefter saying he thinks that Ja'Marr's representation didn't like Zach Taylor making those comments and trying to control the narrative. And Ja'Marr, once again, not practicing is kind of their way of saying, hey, you don't get to decide what happens here. So time will tell if this carries over into the regular season and if Ja'Marr is willing to miss some games. If he does, he'll miss out on his game checks, but the thing is, his base salary for this season is like $1 million, which is around $60,000 per game. And in the grand scheme of things, that is pocket change for a guy who's expected to become one of the highest paid receivers of all time, whether it's this year or next. Now, another interesting thing in this situation is that Bengals owner Mike Brown typically doesn't deal with contracts during the season. So if something doesn't get worked out before the Bengals season opener on September 8th, this could get even trickier for the Bengals and their star receiver. Now, let's move on to another team in the AFC North, because Mark Andrews was back at practice today for the first time since he was in that car crash back on August 14th. So thankfully, all is well with Andrews. That is some good news there for the Ravens as they take on the Chiefs in the season opener next Thursday. It feels good. So good to say that football is back in less than 1 week. Now, someone who will not be playing in that season opener is going to be Chiefs wide receiver Hollywood Brown, after Andy Reid spoke to the media today saying he will not be available for week 1. He went down with a sternoclavicular dislocation on the first play of the Chiefs' initial preseason game a few weeks ago. So, unfortunately, he's going to miss week 1 against his former team. But with the Chiefs having 10 days from Thursday night until their week 2 game, there's a chance he could be back in time for that. The question is, if Hollywood returns week 2 for KC, Will Jamar Chase be back by then, or will he still be holding out? And that makes the Week 2 matchup ever so intriguing in my non-biased opinion. And with that, I'll see y'all next time.